It seems historical pseudo-scholars can't let go of Egypt. Certainly its quite impressive history, its amazing accomplishments, are fodder for all kinds of grand theories about the ancient past that really aren't backed up by any evidence, and in fact are quite silly. But it continues, and here you can go to the oddball theories of Graham Hancock and others, plus the stuff you might see on TV shows like Ancient Aliens and that sort of nonsense. And there have been some examples of this that circulate around the web in the last few years. Probably the best known example are the supposed Egyptian light fixtures that people claim are, that the Egyptians had electric light fixtures of some sort because of pictures like the one I'm showing on the screen right now. But if you actually take a close look, what are supposed to be the filaments of the light fixtures are actually serpents, and what they're actually crawling on is a lotus petal. Apparently this combination is some sort of fertility symbol in ancient Egypt, or some such thing, but it certainly has nothing to do with electric light fixtures. There's no record of Egyptians having electricity, and let us remember, after all, this was the Bronze Age. They hadn't even gotten to iron yet, much less coming up with electric light fixtures, so that one is pretty well shot down, although you still see it out there, but it's nonsense. But, of course, those of the Coast to Coast AM crowd just won't give it up. And recently, I've come across a new claim, at least new to me. I wasn't aware of it until the last few weeks, having to do with something found in a temple in Abydos in Egypt. And what they claim are advanced pictures of advanced aircraft, etc., etc. Now, right away, and they claim, by the way, that this is from 3000 BC, so 5,000 years ago, perhaps even older. Thus, this is older than the pyramids. Well, the first problem with that, of course, is the temple is actually from the Middle Kingdom, which would put it closer to more like 1500 BC, which would put it 1,000 years after the pyramids. So that's a big problem. I mean, that's one problem. But the other fact is that the Middle Kingdom period is, again, we're talking the Bronze Age. We're not talking something where they would have had advanced technology. They hadn't gotten to iron yet, in other words, or they were just about to get to iron, to the smelting of iron. There's no possible way they could have had any such advanced technology, nor is it ever claimed in any Egyptian text that they did. So right away we have all sorts of obvious problems with it. But people will still insist, and well, with the resulting silliness that one finds among various conspiracy theorists who claim that Egyptologists and other historians are trying to suppress the truth, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is the picture they will generally show you, and if you look in the sort of top left, sort of just left to center on the top, you see what appears, at least seems to look rather much like a helicopter, and you'll see other things that might look like aircraft or some other ships and whatever, and the whole thing's kind of impressive. Now that and it looks almost like it's encased in bronze, so this whole thing looks rather impressive, and this is what's being like pushed around the net as proof of ancient aircraft or some such thing. Ancient advanced technology by the Egyptians. Again, though, we have the problem that there's no evidence in anything we know the Egyptians actually built of such advanced technology. Now, the fact is, the Egyptians did some very, very, very impressive things, but they were certainly not anything beyond the technology of the time. They were just impressive in their artistry, in their amazing accurateness of the skill. These were incredible artisans, incredible architects, but it's all basically using technology that would have been around in the Bronze Age. It's just done extremely well, and they deserve lots of credit for such an advanced civilization, but there's no sign of any advanced technology in ancient Egypt. Like something akin to what we would have in the modern era. It just isn't there. And so right away you wonder, well, if they had such things, where did it go? For example, when at the end of the Middle Kingdom, when Egypt gets invaded, well, why didn't they just send a fleet of helicopters out to defend them? Or why is Pharaoh always portrayed riding a chariot? Don't you think riding something akin to a Huey or an Apache would have been a lot more impressive for a pharaoh? I mean, he could have flown over the battlefield and directed his armies, without having, there's obvious issues here with what we know about history. Why, when the people of the sea, as they were called, that invaded and sort of ended the Middle Kingdom, the whole problems with the Middle Kingdom, why didn't they just send helicopters out to fight them? I would think helicopters would be able to fend off a bunch of guys throwing spears and wielding swords. But none of this is ever answered. It's just, look, helicopter. And that's pretty much it. Well, the first problem you have is that the entire thing it was actually altered. The picture was altered. It wasn't in bronze or anything like bronze. It was carved in stone. If you look at the front of the helicopter, you can see this big chunk of something taken out and various other things, various other imperfections in the picture. And this becomes rather important, as I will describe later in a few moments. But obviously, the picture that you're seeing paraded around is not what it actually looks like. There are, in fact, some interesting things. A lot of parts of these things are recognizable as hieroglyphs, but the pictures that you see don't look quite right, and there's a reason for it. You see, the ancient Egyptians, a lot of times, when a particular pharaoh took over, and they had certain things written on walls of temples, they would overwrite them. They would basically put plaster over them and write over them. So it wasn't really what you'd think. It was almost like they put another layer of wall over it and then carve into that, or paint on that, and you have another thing. And what happened over the millennia since then is that pieces of these plaster-type alterations have fallen off. So what you get are actually combinations of 2 or 3 different writings, but unless you're looking at it live, you won't realize that. And certainly in the way the picture was altered, and the one that's being distributed, you certainly wouldn't see. It looks like an etching into bronze, which it isn't at all. So what actually happens is you're getting a combination of texts. In fact, the way it comes together is that you've got pieces from different texts at different times. It's all not the same thing. In fact, here is a basic outline of the changes as they were made in different stages, where basically something was plastered over, something else was put over it, etc., etc. So things were like covered up, and then eventually things also fell off and reappeared, and you can see the top stage is more or less akin to what we have now. So it really isn't at all what you would think. Like the blades of that helicopter are not, and what looks like the body of the helicopter are actually separate hieroglyphs and are not part of the same thing. So the whole thing is an interesting coincidence, but merely the seeing of pictures in clouds, more or less. Here you're seeing different stages of hieroglyphs and things falling off and deterioration, and you're making it all combines to kind of look like a helicopter, and then the person who took the picture and altered it to make it look even more so by taking other things out of the picture and distorting it, and that's what we end up with now. And we've got this crazy theory going around the internet of helicopters in ancient Egypt, which is all kind of silly when you think about it. But oh well, there you go. Thank you very much for your time.